Welcome again to another Hammetless version of This Week in Wisconsin Prep Hockey. This is your substitute host, Bill Berg, along with Bill Berg Jr. just down the road, Michael Trzynski in Wisconsin Rapids, and Del Scanlon in Reedsburg, I think. Nice job. Let's just jump right into it here. Trasher had our boys' game of the week, which was Arrowhead at Fond du Lac, the Jeff Merrill Remembrance game. And Trasher, how did that one go?
Hey, Burglar. Thanks. It was a good game. Arrowhead ended up winning 3-2. Before the game, the parents of Jeff Merrill, Larry and Carol Merrill, I don't think she's any relation to the old spokesmodel on The Price is Right, and their son Bob. Larry and Bob dropped ceremonial first pucks before the game. It was a nice moment for them, and they had said that it was the first time since the accident that happened where her son died 30 years ago that Carol had stepped into a hockey rink. So I'm sure she had some mixed emotions for being there, but it was a nice moment. There were 17 players and coaches from the 88-89 team, so it was pretty cool, and it was a nice moment. There was a pretty good crowd on the Fond du Lac side, and they had a couple of games that they did. They did a Hungry Hippo game on ice, which was quite entertaining. That raised some money for, I believe, food pantries, and they had the usual chuck-a-puck and stuff. So it was pretty cool. I'm sure it was kind of heartwarming for the parents, and mixed emotions, like I said. But the game was a good game. It was close pretty much all the way through. Ethan Hill scored 2 minutes into the game to give Arrowhead the lead. Near the end of the first period, Brody Dietert for Fond du Lac tied it at 1-1. Tanner Schutt scored in the middle of the second period to give Arrowhead a 2-1 lead, and then stayed that way for most of the third period. About 4 minutes left, Zach Wolverton scored on a power play to give Arrowhead a 3-1 lead, and it looked like they were kind of in control, but just wait a minute, here comes Fondy. They pulled the goalie at 2:22, and then they didn't do anything for a little bit, and then they called a timeout at 1:11. 8 seconds later, they scored a goal. Logan Graff scored on a shot from the point to make it 3-2, and that's how it would end up. Even though they played probably on and off a couple of times, they put the goalie in, pulled him back out. They were unable to score, and Arrowhead scored a 3-2 victory in the JM 21 game. Shots were 31 for Arrowhead, 20 for Fond du Lac. Pretty even match, and it was very worthwhile. I'm sure there would be a lot of memories for everybody. Kind of mixed memories, but a good game, and I think everybody had a really good time. So it was all right.
Well, thank you for that wrap up there, Trash. Our girls' game of the week featured the Central Wisconsin Storm and the Metro Lynx. Dell was at that game. Dell, how did that game go?
Thanks, Burglar. This was the Noah Sanger Leukemia Lymphoma Awareness Game. And as we spoke last week, Trasher brought up about how Ava Jambor of the Lynx basically coordinated this whole event and put it all together. And pre-game, you saw Noah and his younger brother out doing warm-ups with the Lynx. And then just before they were to do the introductions, Noah and his little brother were on the ice, and Noah actually skated down to the end, to the goal line where the Storm were all lined up and fist bumped all of them, and then went back down and fist bumped one of the referees on his way down, back down to the Lynx area, and then fist bumped all the Lynx players also. And then they did the introductions, and the game got underway. And it didn't take long before the Storm's Audrey Ladewig scored the first goal. And the thing about this goal was she was actually trying a centering pass from behind the net, putting it up at the top of the crease, and it hit off the stick of one of the defenders for the Lynx right back towards the opposite post that the goalie had sealed off. And they both reached for it, and neither one could grab it before it slid into the net to give the Storm a 1-0 lead. Then that score remained that way till there was 21 seconds left in the game, and Storm put another goal in to go up 2-0 at the end of the first period. Second period was pretty much a repeat of the first period, as the Storm scored 2 goals in that period. They increased the lead to 4-0, and then 1 goal in the third to come out of there with a 5-0 win. And the one thing that you noticed in this game is, Coach Susans and Coach McKersey, I believe is the head coach for the Lynx, both during the entire game is what I like seeing from a coach and everything, is how they coached from the bench and were very positive with the players out there, just making sure they're getting in position, hustling back, and applying the offensive pressure, making sure their defenders got back. But, we're very positive from the bench to all their players. And once, what can you say, the Storm did very good job at moving the puck and using their speed to create shots, and came out of there with a 5-0 win. And with that, I'm going to toss it back to you, Burglar.
All right, thanks, Del. Thanks for that wrap-up. Bill and I made our second consecutive weekend trip up to Eagle River to catch what we thought was going to be the championship game of the Pines Classic, but due to weather conditions on Friday kind of messed up the games there. Instead, we just saw University School play Northland Pines, which is kind of what we were hoping for. Anyway, Bill, why don't you tell us about that game?
Sure. Like you said, it was just 1 week after we were there last. And while the temperature difference on the thermometer was only 5 degrees, 1 degree last week, -4 this week, it felt like a whole lot more. That was the coldest hockey game I have attended in a long, long time.
Well, you've been in Kansas.
I know, but it was cold. I think I came away with it a little better than you. You're old. Yeah, and, Pines number 6 in the state, USM number 1 in the state coming into the game. You wouldn't know it the way the game happened on the ice. For the first 2 minutes or so, USM actually pretty well controlled things, and for the next 35 minutes after that, it was mostly Northland Pines. They did a great job of breaking up most of USM's breakout passes from the defensive zone. They did a great job of playing defense in front of their net. Probably only 2 or 3 decent rebound shots for USM the whole game. And Pines did a great job of generating scoring chances for themselves from something other than odd man rushes, which is what we see a lot of the scoring coming out of when it comes to late games in the sectional tournament and at the state tournament. And Pines used all those factors to roll to a 4-0 win over the number 1 team in the state. It was a good game all around. I don't want to sound like Pines dominated it, but USM was clearly back on their heels for most of the game, and it just made Pines look that much faster. They swarmed the same way they did against USM, and several players on Northland Pines, first and foremost Jack Rohde, are wizards at stick handling, and they generated probably 7 or 8 very, very good scoring chances from the corner of the offensive zone, which is something we don't see a lot of these days. Dancing around 2 defenders and getting a shot open in front of the net. 2 of those ended up being goals. Lachlan Stiegmeyer second liner for Pines, had 2 goals in the game. Andrew Rothmeyer had their 3rd goal on a beautiful play by Rhodey. He once again went around 2 guys, got the puck in front of the net. Frank Free kind of sprawled out to stop it, and you've all seen a goalie sprawled out, legs wide, face first on the ice. The puck was between his legs. The near side official looked like he was in the process of blowing it dead, but the official behind the net could see that the puck was uncovered between Fee's legs and the net, and Rothmeyer stepped in and just kind of poked it into the net. There was some discussion about that one, but after the officials explained it, there was no complaining from the USM bench. They just moved on, and the 4th goal came actually during a major power play for USM. Pines got caught with an open ice checking from behind for a 5 and 10. They iced the puck. Jack Rhodey went down and got it and put it in the open net. USM had pulled the goalie with 4 minutes left to take advantage of the major penalty to give themselves a 6-on-4, but it backfired and made it a 4-0 win for Pines.
Hey, Webb. Now we know that the Dome has some quirky advantages that maybe are home ice advantages. In particular, I believe that the neutral zone is significantly smaller than a normal neutral zone. How do you think that came into play with the speed of USM? Did they have problems with that?
I think they did when it came to their breakouts and their transition from the defensive zone to the offensive zone. That short neutral zone just shortened everything up for them, and Pine's speed was able to really take away a lot of their good breakout chances. So I think the neutral zone did help in that respect. And there was Pines got one scoring chance off of a classic Dome bounce. Fee went behind the net to corral a puck that was careening around the boards. It went up and over his stick to a Pines forward in the opposite corner. Fee managed to get back out in front and stop the shot before Pines could put it in the net. But there was one classic Pines bounce. And I guess maybe to return the favor, Pines goalie Brett Wilkins sort of did the same thing on the next shift, except that his wasn't a Pines bounce. He just made a terrible pass when going behind the net to collect the puck. Just giving USM a freebie, but he managed to get back in front before they could put it in. I believe that shot was actually blocked by the Pines defense because they had 2 or 3 guys in front of their net all night.
Yeah, I know. I think it's the north end of the rink by the lobby. That is correct, right? North end, if I'm not mistaken. That always seemed to, when Emily played up there, there were some interesting bounces that would happen off the glass and wood and whatever is behind there, and you just never knew what to expect. It's not.
Pine's scoring opportunity actually happened on the other side of the ice, but Wilkins' errant pass did happen on that north end. And yeah, I was impressed with Pines last week in their win over Wapaka, but that game was so lopsided you really can't see what's what. But their game against University School really opened my eyes to how good a team they actually are, which can be hard to tell. Pines, in the Great Northern Conference, the conference is not having a great season. So their games against those opponents haven't really helped them any when it comes to rankings or evaluation. But this one showed how good they really are. I talked about him last week. Again, Jack Rhodey is a wizard with the puck. It's like he's got stickum on the blade of his stick. The things he can do with the puck while maneuvering around multiple defenders is absurd. Second liner, let me check his name here. Harmon Marion, number 24, is actually an excellent stick handler in his own right. He had some great moves around USM defenders, generating scoring opportunities for Pines in that game as well. Those two really stand out as guys who can turn what should be nothing into an odd man rush because they get around somebody that they have no business getting around.
This may be a little bit beyond your knowledge database here, but so maybe Jack Rhodey is the Freddie Bolitnikoff of high school hockey with the stickum Burglar probably gets that one.
That's a bit of a reach, but
A little bit, but he said stick 'em.
Lester
And
Hayes.
Freddie Bolitnikoff.
yeah.
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 Okay, but I think...
Think of the cornerback, Lester Hayes, the stick 'em dripping off of him.
So, I mean, I saw Pines play one other time. They played against Spash, and they beat Spash. I think it was 3-2 or whatever the score was, but they impressed me there. And University School has been tough all year, so this is, probably arguably the top, maybe 2, 3, 4 teams in the state in that game. So you guys got a chance to see a really good one.
Now, to University School's credit, they did play the day before, and Pines did not. They played 7 o'clock the night before, and then came back and played at noon the next day. That will take a little spring out of your step. I mean, they're teenagers; it shouldn't be too bad, but that is something that can affect them. And they did look like they were on their heels most of the night, so. I don't know if we saw USM at their best, but Pines was still pretty good, and we'll see more of Pines on the 7th, February 7th. They'll take on Superior in another probably top 5 matchup heading into I think it's their second to last game before the regionals start.
I don't think we've heard the end of these two teams.
Yeah, not that the game needed any qualifiers, but I've always maintained that dome, that ice sheet is a 2-goal advantage, 2-goal home ice advantage for Pines, and then you throw in, that University School played the night before. Did that factor in? I don't know. I'm not going to say it did. Pines just looked faster and looked more comfortable, and they really took it to University School. On our way up there, we were checking Google Maps and driving around. We were looking for an Italian restaurant that Bob and I had eaten at before covering one of the Pines Classics. And one of the local gentlemen up there was doing their Facebook Live coverage of the game. I didn't catch his name. I think it was Grizzly Adams. But he told us that place had closed down and recommended a Mexican restaurant that is just about directly across from the rink, and that turned out to be a very good recommendation. We went there and had a nice late lunch, early dinner after the game, warmed up a little bit, and then headed back south. So he also said he listens to this podcast. So thank you for that recommendation. It turned out well, and we were happy with our trip. And I think by about 8 o'clock Saturday, I finally started to warm up.
That's not bad, because on the other end of the spectrum, at the Fond du Lac game, I think it was 50 degrees in the rink, or so it seemed. I was sweating. So just the opposite.
Alrighty, moving along. Oh, it says me to do Players of the Week. Del, you with us? We're going to spring the Players of the Week on
Yes,
Del.
I am.
We'll spring the Players of the Week on you.
Okay, this week, our Players of the Week. Our girls' Player of the Week is from Hayward, Emma Quimby. She had 27 saves and allowed 2 goals in a 2-2 tie with number 6 Hudson, and then had 28 saves in a 1-0 shutout over number 10 in Minnesota, Duluth Marshall. They're ranked number 10 in their Class 1A. So for a total of 55 saves, 2 goals allowed with 1 shutout for a .965 save percentage. And our girls' Player of the Week is Emma Quimby. On the boys' side, he had 2 goals, 1 assist, and a 7-0 win over Medford. 2 goals and a 4-0 win over number 1 USM for a total of 4 goals and 1 assist. And he's a senior from Northland Pines, Lachlan Siegmeyer. And Lachlan is our boys' Player of the Week. And with that, we're going to toss it on back over to Burglar.
Thanks, Del. Hate to spring that on you like that, but they've heard enough of me already. Moving on. Top 10. Let's see. When number 6 beats number 1 in the head-to-head matchup 4-0, I'm going to guess that's going to shake up the top 10 a little bit. How did that turn out there, Bill?
It did shake up the top 10, and it shook up the top 10 on a lot of ballots. Northland Pines moved up from 6th all the way to 1st, which is the biggest jump to 1st in recent memory. I guess people were waiting for, another top 10 game for Pines. They had a 1-goal loss to West. They had beaten Spash, and now they beat number 1 USM, and that jumps them all the way up from 6th to 1st. USM drops to 2nd. Wassa West moves up to 3rd. Superior drops to 4th. Verona drops 3 spots from 2nd to 5th. Spash moves up to 6th. Sun Prairie drops to 7th. Onalaska drops to 8th. Nina Hortonville Menasha is still 9th, and Eau Claire North, moves into the 10th spot. Honorable mention for the boys are Eau Claire Memorial, Hudson, Notre Dame Academy, and Waukesha. For the girls, the Warbird Beaver Dam Co-op moves up to number 1 from number 3. Fox City Stars drop to number 2. Central Wisconsin Storm moves up to number 3. The Eau Claire Area Stars drop down to 4th. The Western Wisconsin Stars hold steady at 5th. St. Croix Valley Fusion and Hudson swap places. They are now 6th and 7th. USM is 8th. Bay Area moves up 1 spot to 9th. Rock County drops 1 spot to 10th. And honorable mention for the girls are Cap City, Hayward, and Onalaska.
That is a lot of movement for this late in the season. Usually things have settled in by this time of year, but not so much this year.
My guess is if USM had beaten Pines, the boys' top 10 would have barely shifted. Spash beating Verona would have caused some moves, but Pines over USM 4-0, probably the biggest mover. Obviously moved them up 6th. Verona take out the 2 games against Sun Prairie, and they're 0-3-2 against other top 10 teams, so that 2nd place ranking they had last week was going to be hard for them to hold. They've got to win some of those games against top 10 teams. Obviously, they're 2-0 against Sun Prairie, but 2 losses to West, a loss to Spash, a tie with, I believe, Notre Dame, and a tie with, I believe, Waukesha. I could be making that second one up, but it was a tie with somebody else in the top 10. So that dropped them down from 2nd to 5th. Those seem fair. I don't think there's anything too outlandish out there.
I find, it's maybe to the people that aren't voting or on the periphery here, or maybe fans of schools, see a team jump from 6 to 1 and then wonder why number 8 beats number 2 and number 2 was still ahead of number 8 in the case of Verona and Spash. But I mean, even I think like the guys in the BCS or whatever, I mean, that's all computerized and stuff, but even that is kind of weird and funky at times, and you see a lot of weird stuff.
Well, it's not even weird, because that's one game, and most of these teams have played 18 games at this point. 18, 19 games. That's one game out of the whole schedule. And if you look at it, you're like, well, Wassa West beat Pines, so West should be ahead of Pines. Well, West also lost to USM, who lost to Pines. I mean, those 3 teams have a game of rock, paper, scissors going. Between the 3 of them, you cannot use head-to-head to determine who should be ranked where. You have to look at the whole package.
Yeah, and I think, like Bill mentioned when he kicked it off, how a team can jump from number 6 to number 1. I think the only thing that was really holding Pines back and making people question them was their schedule. They hadn't, their conference was weak this year. They hadn't played, that many other top 10 teams, so here they had a chance, to show what they have, and, they rose to the occasion. And I think that just kind of erased a lot of doubts in the minds of some of those other coaches at voting that, yeah, I guess Pines is for real.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. I think so too. One thing that seems kind of weird though, and maybe it's got to do with the scheduling and who plays who or whatever, but it seems like last week there were hardly any moves on either of the polls, and then this week it's like almost every team in the top 10 moved. So, just the vagaries of it all, it just, you never know what's going to happen.
Well, if you just look at it on the numbers on the boys' side, 6 beat 1 and 8 beat 2, with Pines over USM and Spash over Verona. It's never, you never get penalized for losing to a team who's ranked higher than you, but when you lose to a team that's ranked lower than you, generally there's going to come with a penalty from the voters. And there were losses this week. The Fox City Stars had a loss. So on the girls' side, so they dropped. It's just, there's, when you're a high-ranked team and you lose, voters tend to punish you.
And I think too that, and you guys know this because there's 5 of us, and we all have different thoughts about how teams move depending on how they do in games in the rankings. But everybody is different, Whereas some people might say, oh, Pines should go up to number 1. There might be some people that say, no, West should go up to number 1 because Pines shouldn't be able to jump over them. So, you have all these different voters with different thought processes. And, it's something that I think the fans don't always get. It's like, oh, our team won and we should be here, and they're not. And then they get all upset. Well, there's just too many things going on, too many voters with too many different voting techniques, let's call them, and you just never know.
Yeah, I don't have any rules like that when I'm submitting my votes. I don't have a rule that if this team beat this other team, that other team can't jump past them. I don't do any of that. I put the teams in the order I think they should be in, looking at the schedule that they've played. I might use the previous top 10 as a template, just so I don't have to review 6 weeks of hockey for 15 different teams to determine who should be where. But every voter, like you said, every voter is going to be different. Some are going to do that. Some are going to take last week's rankings and just bump people up and down 1 or 2 spots because of how things went for the week. I don't do that, but there's a lot of different people voting a lot of different ways, and Pines showed up this week number 1 on a lot of ballots.
Yep, and if anybody's getting upset because their team isn't ranked where they think they should be in our top 10, then they've got some misplaced priorities. There are many other reasons to get upset with us besides just the top 10s. But I'm looking now at you mentioned the BCS, which hasn't been in existence for a long time, but you're old, so we'll forgive you for that. But looking at the, as Jeff Rochon would tell us, probably the most accurate gauge, in the state is his stack rankings, which, prior to this weekend had University School at number 1 and Northland Pines at number 2 and Wausau West at number 3. Well, there was a straightforward, number 2 beat number 1. Swap them. And that's what happened.
Yeah, I'm kind of, Mitch Hawker's got the USHS-HO and Jeff Rochon, who I didn't see Saturday, by the way. I was surprised, has stack. And there are some variances between the two, and that's I think kind of the fun thing about those 2 rankings, the My Hockey ranking and the coaches poll. There's all this variance, and it makes for a lot of conversation, and in some cases people get pissed off or whatever, but like I always tell everybody, it doesn't really matter what the rankings say. It matters who wins the last game of the year. So wait until March before you get too fired up about it.
Alrighty. Having beat that horse within an inch of its life, let's move on to this week's upcoming games of the week. And as is somewhat customary this time of year, we don't know who's going to be playing who in our games of the week this week, do we, Trasher?
No. Can MJ do this part? I'm all talked out. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so next week's game of the week, we're looking at a couple of conference tournaments, and we're going to cover the conference championship games as our game of the week. On the girls' side, it'll be the Eastern Shores Conference Championship, which will be held Saturday at 6:30 p.m. at the Tri-County Arena, Dell, not the Tri-City Arena. For some reason, I keep calling it that. In Neenah, Del Scanlon will be there to cover that game. Yeah, like we said, we don't know who's going to be in that. You can get some upsets, and your favorite teams might not be in the championship game, so we don't know. It'll be the Eastern Shores Conference Championship for the girls' side. On the boys' side, it'll be the Badgerland Conference Championship, and that will be held Saturday, and the time is to be determined. We haven't seen a schedule yet. I'm sure after the coaches hear this, they'll probably send out schedules to us at the Fond du Lac Blue Line Ice Center, and Burglar will be down there to cover that game on Saturday. So a couple of conference championship games. The conference tournaments, guys, positive, negative, what do you think about it? You guys like those, right?
Well, we spent 4 years badgering every conference in the state until someone else added one. Because while Burglar is at the Badgerland Conference Championship on Saturday, I will be at the Great Northern Conference Championship in Anago on Saturday. Yeah,
it was an easy choice as to which one would be our game of the week, because we thought that the number 1 and number 2 team in the Great Northern Conference, 2 weeks ago was going to be a great game of the week, and that turned out to be not. So we're not going to make that mistake again. So I'll go to the Fond du Lac.
My goal is that, within the next few years, every conference with at least 6 teams has a conference tournament to end the season. And then after that, I'll work on my true goal, which is the Cardinal Cup, where Middleton, Pacelli, Chippewa Falls, there's 5 of them.
Fond du
Lac, and I don't remember the 5th one right now, all play, over the course of the season to determine who's the best Cardinal. That's my real goal. That's my only reason for being a member of Wisconsin Prep Hockey, is to implement the Cardinal Cup.
All right. First come the conference championships, and then Cardinal Cup. All right. Final thoughts. I'm going to guess that Trasher, we're going to hear from you again. It's not like we're getting tired of hearing your voice yet, but speak some more.
Well, you might be, but this will be the last time I talk about it this year, believe it or not.
Well, and are the nominations due this week?
That is correct.
Oh, okay.
The Hobie Baker Character Award.
I'm going to go on record saying you're going to talk about it one more time, because you're going to be disappointed with the turnout, and you're going to admonish the coaches who didn't turn one in, and you're going to think real long and hard about actually calling them out either by name or by school if they don't turn one in.
I won't know that until state tournament, so because we don't ever see the results until we open up the state tournament program and you see the winners in there. But I do know this is the 14th year of the award, and did I ever happen to mention that this is a great addition to a college resume? I don't think I ever mentioned that before, but it is. I mean, this is, it's a cool award, and people, they look at that and they respect that, because it's called the Hobie Baker Character Award. So I think that tells a lot about a kid as he's moving from high school to college. So it's a cool thing. Last year we had roughly 70% of the boys and girls teams nominated a winner, and we hope that it can be higher this year. We're shooting for 80%. Jim Hayes of the Hobie Award, whatever it's called, the Hobie Award. Okay, so he had mentioned to me that we have the highest participation rate in the United States amongst all the states that do this. So that's great, but we can do better. Every team should be able to name a kid for the Hobie Baker Award. The second thing that I have is a Jeff Sauer Award, which this will be the second year. The deadline on that is January 31st, and that is recognizing good hockey players being great people. Last year, Shane Ryan, the goalie from Madison Edgewood, won the award, and it's a pretty big deal too. So you got just a couple days. Coaches, make sure you get your players nominated for that. Parents, fans, players, if you know somebody that you think is deserving, make sure to hit up your coach, because this is a great award too. Jeff Sauer, I mean, that's a big deal. UW coach, the current coach, Tony Granato, will present the award on the Wednesday before state tournament in Madison at the state tournament team banquet. And they'll also have check this out, Junior, the Player of the Year award there. So, Gordie Howe, sorry, I didn't wreck your thing, buddy. So, that's about all I have for this evening. Sorry to be so long-winded. We just kind of free flow here. At least I do. That's just the way I am.
I wonder if now that American Family Insurance has won the naming rights to the Brewers Stadium, if Miller Brewing will sponsor the Player of the Year award.
I think the WIAA would frown on that. They don't get too happy about stuff like that. So I'm hoping that American Family does it again. We'll see. So that's about it for me, guys. My final thoughts. If you guys are good, I'm good, and we can call it a night here and say goodbye and say good evening to our loyal listeners. And Burglar, you get the official sign off. Maybe he already signed off.
Maybe he's talking to his mute button like a true professional.
I was on mute. Sorry. Del, you okay with you all done?
Eyes all done. I hope everybody has a good evening.
All right. If you're listening and you're down in the Janesville area, tell and you see MJ, tell him you miss him on these podcasts. We miss his happy little hobbit voice too. So until next week, maybe he'll be back, maybe he won't. Thank you for listening to This Week in Wisconsin Prep Hockey.